Hello people, I'm Jaby KOAY, joined by ACHARA KIRK.
Hey there.
And we are talking about SAAHO, the movie, the Telugu action film, shot in 4 different languages simultaneously. Starring Prabhas and Shraddha Kapoor, written and directed by Sujeeth. So, the reviews have been kind of all over the place on this movie. I understand why. It makes sense. IMDb currently has it at a 6 out of 10. There are some reviews I've found that say 1 out of 5, 2.5 out of 5, 5 out of 5. There are people who love this film. I understand all the different feelings at the same time. For me personally, I think that it's probably in terms of action, just in terms of action alone, it's the best Telugu action film I've seen so far. From just how beautiful it looked, from the great shots, the editing, all around, like in terms of the individual action sequences, it was actually really well put together in that regard. The story is very convoluted though.
Yes.
It's kind of all over the place. It lost me a couple of times. I have a summary here. I don't know who wrote the summary, but I thought I would read it to you because it doesn't really give away any spoilers at all. The story is about a power battle which is taking place in the higher echelons of power, unrelated and unconnected episodes occurring in different parts of the globe, intertwined in an unforeseen manner to a revelation of mind games. The story delves the audience into the game of a brilliant mastermind to reveal the true nature of all that are involved. It challenges the perceptions of who is the hunter and who is the hunted. It blends in a thrilling story with commercial elements of storytelling to deliver a high-octane action entertainer appealing to all segments of the audience. That last line right there is a lie, but outside of that, that's actually a pretty accurate summary of the film. It's like, it does all those things. There was a comment that I saw on one of my YouTube music video reactions for a SAAHO music video. The movie's bad because the story is too simple. I looked at that comment, I was confused. I'm like, I agree the story's not great, but it's not because it's too simple, it's because it's too convoluted, it's too complicated. It was trying to do too much at the same time.
Maybe the idea behind the story is not like the most original. It's kind of like oh, you didn't expect this to happen and then it did happen. But for me, what I found frustrating about the story was that I felt that nothing was really earned so much story-wise. When you're doing a story which you're hoping will have a bunch of different surprises in it, it's really nice for the audience to drop little clues along the way that maybe you don't realize until the final reveal, and then you can go, oh, and you have that moment. Whereas this, I felt like it just went, surprise! And you were like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It did that twice. I didn't really need that from the movie. I would have been fine if it was a straightforward narrative, but it was trying really hard to surprise you in these different ways.
Yeah.
Because of that, it just detracted from the story. Now, for all of those of you who get frustrated whenever I compare an Indian film, particularly an action film, to an American film, this is one where you have to give me a pass for sure. Because there are American references straight in the middle of the movie where they actually show you the film. I can point out to you so many instances that are borrowed from other films. That's the thing that made this difficult for me. It was difficult for me to place my feelings in terms of whether or not I liked it or not, because I understood what the director was going for. I understood what he wanted to do. This, to me, is what I call a Drishyam director. And what I mean by that is, this director absorbed a whole bunch of different things from the last 30 years of American action films and smushed it into one movie. I can see the inspirations, I can see the different areas of, oh, he got that from Terminator, he got that from Mission Impossible, he got that from Mad Max. I can see it all, but it's like, it doesn't necessarily coalesce in the best way possible. That's, I think, where the issue is. Like you mentioned a number of times, that it feels like a montage of different things.
It did.
And I can see why you feel that way. I can see, now that the movie's over and I've let it simmer in my mind and percolate for a little while, I can see what he wanted to, what Sujeeth was aiming for. I can see the genius at work. I mean, it's not the smartest movie, but I can see what he was trying to do and where it just kind of falls apart at the seams.
Yeah.
I get it, but it didn't work because the execution was off, is the easiest way to put it. I'm being very generic on purpose in case you guys haven't seen it and you still plan to watch it. I still recommend watching it. That's the thing, is even though this movie is kind of a mess, it's a beautiful mess.
Yeah.
I do recommend it because the action is actually pretty cool. I determined that in the first I'd say 15 minutes of the movie. There was some story stuff, and then they actually have an action sequence after that. And that first action sequence told me that this was different from a lot of other Telugu action films, at least the ones I've been exposed to so far. That is a lot of choppy editing and like crazy weird camera work and stuff where I don't quite understand how the editor stitched together the fight scene. Like I've seen that happen a lot with Telugu fight scenes. Whereas here, I could see the whole story. I could see the choreography. What I mean by story is specifically the story within the choreography. I could see how one thing connects to the next thing and how one action informs another reaction. I liked it for that reason alone. All the action in the film in general was just well done. It's just high octane. The thing is, there were no emotional stakes for me that I didn't feel invested in what was happening.
It felt to me like this movie was so beautiful to look at. Like the visuals were stunning. I loved the costume design, the set design, the cinematography, all of that was beautiful. But after a while, it just felt like watching a really long music video. Like to me, that's all it was. It was like just really, really pretty visuals, and the story, like you said, didn't really hook me in emotionally that much, even though I could see that they were trying, you know, like with SAAHO's story, Rita's story, Shraddha Kapoor's character. I was like, yeah, I see what you're doing, but I don't feel it. That's problematic for me.
Right. I felt frustrated and gypped that Jackie Shroff was horribly underused in this movie.
Yeah!
I really wanted to see more of him, and I understood why he was used as much as he was. To say anything more would ruin some of the movie. Not a lot, but some of it. So I'm not going to say why he was underused, but I was frustrated because, like, you see him in the trailer and you're like, this dude's dope. I mean, he's a good actor. He's got a great look to him. I wanted to see more of his performance, and I just didn't. I didn't get it because he was just underused in the film. Shraddha Kapoor is beautiful, of course. Whatever her own story was not defined enough for me that it was like memorable. Like I didn't come out of the theater thinking, wow, she had a great story.
Yeah.
I came out of the theater going, wow, that was a lot of stuff. And I was mostly focused in on Prabhas, who looks great on the big screen, man. I mean, the thing is, like, you're immediately comparing this to Bahubali. And I had my complaints about Bahubali. And the reason why you're comparing it to that, of course, is because it's the same actor. It's, you know, obviously it's like his next big hit. I don't know how SAAHO's doing at the box office, but if I had to compare, you know, Bahubali 1 and 2 as like one long story, compared to SAAHO, as of right now, I think that Bahubali is a more cohesive story.
I agree.
Certainly. But in terms of just entertaining action, I think that I would elect to watch SAAHO instead. Just because it's stuff that, it's for obvious reasons. Like, it's stuff I'm familiar with. It's stuff I grew up with. Like, I can identify all those things. Like, Sujeeth loves a lot of the same movies I love. You know, I can see where he got his inspiration. It just resonates with me. It's one of those things where it's like, it's not a great movie, but I like what the director likes. And I like the director's approach in general to how he deals with action. Could it use improvement? Of course. But in general, I liked what this director did. I think that he is, assuming SAAHO does well, he is elevating action. And I hope that it continues to elevate the action in the Telugu industry.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because one reason to support a movie like this is in the hopes that more movies with this caliber of action continue to be made. Improving on the story, obviously, giving it some sort of emotional heartbeat, but yeah, why not keep elevating the action in the industry and keep pushing the envelope further and further? One
of the things that I was excited for when I first saw, you know, some of the action stuff in the commercials for SAAHO was how much real action there was going to be. And there's a number of moments in the film where it goes well into cartoon mode. Obviously, I'm buying into the notion that this is a Fast and Furious type action film, right? It's over the top. It's going to be goofy sometimes. It's going to have unrealistic moments sometimes. But there are instances where that unrealisticness is like on another level. And I'm like, why did you have to do that? Like, you didn't have to do that. There's a sequence where a car is literally sliding on a railing and the character inside the car catches this item. And I'm like, why did you have to do that like that? Like, it just wasn't necessary. And that's a minute complaint, but the reason why I think it warrants being included in this review is because this could have been an action movie to define action films in India. Yeah. In terms of like this, because they obviously spent a lot of money. And there were so many instances where it's like, okay, this is going to bring back like that old school kind of action where everything is pretty much what you see is real. Like they go full Nolan.
Right.
Full Christopher Nolan on this, because that's what he likes to do, is try to make everything as practical as possible. And I thought that a lot of the action was going to be more practical than it was, but there was a number of moments that were CGI, and I'm like, oh, dang, I was kind of hoping that it was going to be more Nolan-esque in that regard. But Nolan's another great reference. I can see... The biggest reference I can see in here, though, is Fast 5. There's stuff in here that's directly pulled right out of Fast 5. Obviously, I'm not gonna say what, but like, it's straight out of the movie. I'm like, wow, that was my favorite Fast and Furious movie, was Fast 5. And
that's a good one.
And so that's why I'm like, this director, obviously, he and I could hang out. And he and I would have a lot to talk about. You know, Sujeeth and I could probably talk for hours about all the action movies we love. That's why I'm saying I get him. I just don't necessarily get this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I understand what the movie wanted to do, I just don't think the execution was as nice as it could have been. There's a conspiracy theory element to this film that I love.
Yes.
Because I'm all about that. I'm all about the Illuminati and the, you know, what's going on with the Masons and the 11 families controlling the world. Like, this film dives into that, but it doesn't dive in enough that the movie's really about that. They're just there as cannon fodder for the story. Really.
Yeah, it's like they couldn't really decide what the story was gonna be about. So it's like, we're gonna have a bunch of different elements. We're gonna have a little bit of romance, a little bit of, you know, a conspiracy and this, that, and the other. And then at some point you're just like, what? Can you just decide on a direction?
Yeah, I mean, if you made one of those elements strong, I think it would have fixed everything else.
Yeah.
There's not one thing I could like hook into that I felt confident about. It's a mixed bag, basically, at the end of the day. The movie's a mixed bag, and I don't know that I would watch it again unless I was hanging out with Sujeeth, and he and I would talk about the stuff and why he did what he did. I would listen to the commentary if it was in English, like, because we have DVD. I don't know if India does it so much, but we have DVD commentaries in the States where you actually hear the director or cast and crew talk about the movie. If Sujeeth was doing it in English or there were English subtitles on Sujeeth's commentary, I would watch the movie again just to hear his perspective on this. That's how much I appreciate the film, even though I take a number of issues with it, I still really appreciate it because of what it was striving for. I mean, to me, after Bahubali, this is the biggest Telugu action movie. Like, I can't think of another one that's bigger than this. It's huge.
Yeah.
It wasn't supported by a strong story is the easiest way to put it.
Yeah.
It was supported by 27 strong stories. So...